Oh, hello friends. I have a very exciting video for us today. I have 3 decks that are on my out of print absolute wish list. Decks that I really didn't ever expect to get my hands on, and if I did, if I came across them, I was sure that the cost would be too much for me to justify. Those 3 decks are the Augenblick. Ugh, I drool over it. I didn't know about it until it was gone. The Idiosyncratic deck. I have the Amethyst Oracle that matches. Again, another deck that I didn't know about until it was gone. And the third deck on my list of out of prints probably will never hold in my hand. I am holding in my hand today, and that is the Majestic Earth Tarot. I amazingly, just absolute luck, fell upon this opportunity as a result of being in the Weavers group, the paid membership from Boho Tarot. And I am thrilled, first of all, to have this deck, and second of all, to know the lovely the lovely person who held this deck before me. This is the first deck also that I have bought from a person, not from a website or, a Kickstarter or Barnes and Noble. This is my first my buy/sell/trade group deck, which makes it even more special. My initial reaction, of course, was to show you all everything and to do a big walkthrough, but there are so many walkthroughs of this deck that I figured instead I would just show you some of the ins and the outs of the deck, some of what makes it so special. I'll tell you about how I'm going to use it, and then do a little bit of a superlative chat. So cards that made me have certain feelings, or most likely to type superlative tour of the deck. So I'll show you a few cards just as I talk. So this deck, oh my gosh, it's just beautiful. By J.D. Hildegard Hinkle. This is the box. It has a really nice slide at the top. It's loose on this copy, so when I was carrying around in the box, I did have a rubber band on it. The guidebook is really nice. It's a really thin, like a paperback sort of paper, which feels really familiar and reminiscent, and has a little bit of a Six of Cups childhood going to the paperback exchange with my aunt sort of feeling. What I love about this guidebook is it not only gives you a description of the card, but also what the actual painting is. These are 19th century landscape paintings, and being able to know that if there's one I really enjoy, that I can look up the artist. So it's a really nice feature that not only are they all in the back, but also a card by card exploration of the art. And as I said, they are landscape paintings that have been assigned to the tarot. It's just a beautiful, especially this card. I don't know how this didn't end up in my superlatives. So the 8 of trees. I'm gonna put this into my trees spot. So let's talk about how this deck treats the suits. They are color coded, so you can organize by suit from the bottom of the card. The majors are purple. Some of the majors have been reassigned by title. The Emperor and the Empress are the Emperor's domain, and the Empress's domain. There were a few other that were renamed, but none of them really stuck with me. The trees, the sort of trees, represents the suit of wands. This is an interesting, not only is this 8 of wands really interesting, but interesting thinking about trees representing fire. But then when you think about how we need wood for fire and we need air for fire, and those things come from trees. To me, it's a different understanding of the root of fire and what supports fire. It took me a second to get it. And by a second, I mean a couple of days. But once it made resonance, I really enjoy it. Of course, water is water. Clouds are swords. What a beautiful Four of Swords to look at this sense of rest and acknowledgement before we move on. There are keywords on the cards. So the Four of Clouds, the Four of Swords is tranquility, vigil, seclusion, and repose. Such a beautiful card. And then the Pentacles are stones. I get lost in these. The courts have been changed as well. The pages are stewards. The knights are riders. I'm going to totally confess, I'm going to remember Knight Rider. Knight equals rider from Knight Rider. The show with the robot car from when I was a kid. The queen is the creature. And the king is the spirit. So the way that I envision myself using these cards, I am working on a nightly practice of drawing a card each night before I go to bed, having something to think about, to guide my dreams, to meditate on as I'm going to sleep. I have been using the messages from the Light meditation deck, but I'm really excited to have a tarot deck of landscapes to bring into this practice. So my intention is to is every evening to draw a card and an oil to use in my bedtime chill out routine. So let's talk about a few of the cards that made me like stop and notice and take my breath. Oh, before I get through there, I totally forgot. There are also 4 additional cards in this landscape perspective, 1 for each element. I don't know, and there's a 5th one for ether, for spirit. I don't know that I will leave these in. I actually am thinking about framing these in one of those, 5-panel long frames. I don't know that I want to use them in the deck, but I also know that I want to keep them beautiful and sacred. So I'm thinking about framing these, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so going back to the superlatives. So these are just simply images that made me stop and pay attention. So the first one I'm going to talk about is, this is a card that made me want to linger, that I was reluctant to pass over when I was flipping through the deck. And this is the Hierophant's Domain. This card is just stunning. And this card is why I really want the Augenblick as well. This reflection of a structural landscape and how it matches and can be paired with our internal landscape. I think this is the only card in this deck, don't quote me because I've just flipped through it a few times. I feel like this is the only card in the deck that has like a structural, internal, indoors landscape. And that just really resonated with me. This presence of a holy space being the root of this card, and recognizing that we can experience a space as holy without necessarily resonating with the specific brand of holiness. Really like this card. The next card I want to show you is the card that gave me really big feels, and that is the 9 of Trees, the 9 of Wands. You can really see the heaviness in this card. You can see the weight of the snow on the tree, but knowing that warmer weather is coming, that we're almost there. The keywords are endurance, resilience, interlude, and defensive. Standing strong with the load you have, because it's the load you have right now. What a beautiful, just stunning representation of that. I'm totally nerding out over this deck. So one of the other things that I always think about as I'm flipping through a deck are the cards that give me like that, that negative, like, I don't want to see this card again. This card scares me. And I didn't find any of those cards in this deck. So I pulled out two of the cards that we tend to think of as the scary card. So I pulled out Death and I pulled out the Tower. And I'm just going to squeeze my face in here between the two of them. And even these are so beautiful and so expressive. And you can really see like what you're leaving behind to move forward. But there's still that, is the sun setting, is the sun rising, this acknowledgement of like, that is what I had, but that's not where I'm going. And then the Tower, just this being caught in the wave and being fully in it. Just, I'm going to start looking at the viewfinder for the card instead of like turning around toward myself. I'm really going to try to remember that. But even like the traditional scary cards, I really enjoy. So the next card is the card that made me go, the card that made me stop for the sake of curiosity and knowing and wanting to know more, as opposed to like just strict beauty of the card. And that is the Whisper of Fortune, which pairs up with the Wheel of Fortune. So we think of the Wheel of Fortune as this cycle, this, where we're always changing, and this non-attachment to the moment, and recognizing that when things are hard, we're learning something to then give us momentum for the way back up. And this card being called the Whisper of Fortune was just this very clear reminder to look in the places that aren't obvious for our wisdom and our learning. I mean, for this figure to actually go up to the mouth of a statue and listen. We don't always have the full story until we ask the questions that seem like they're out there somewhere. And to be in our cycle of exploration, in our cycle of understanding, in the spiral of our life, and sitting down at listening to the non-obvious places to help us build our understanding. This one really, this was a card that made me go, in a really good and supportive way. So a card that gave me a new perspective on the typical understanding of this card is the Three of Clouds, or the Three of Swords. So the typical imagery of the Three of Swords is, the heart being poked and stabbed with the sword, or how I've grown to understand this as removing the obstacles, removing the thoughts, the assumptions that we hold really, really deep that are standing in our way, and being able to sit with the mess and acknowledge the mess and clean up the mess that sense of observation and that sense of action brings forward. So seeing this Three of Swords with this really jagged rock structure standing between where I am and where I'm going, and how do I navigate the danger? How do I navigate the sharpness? How do I navigate the discomfort in my progress forward? How do I steady myself, prepare myself? What tools do I need to navigate this sharp, prickly process? Oh, I just love it. All right, friends, we have two more. So a card that had what I thought was brilliant imagery when we look at the standard RWS meaning of a card is a Ten of Clouds, the Ten of Swords. I have a lot of clouds in here. I'm all about the swords, in case you'll come to know that about me. This is the only card in the deck that is black and white. The key words here are culmination, drama, conclusion, and dreary. What I see in this card is how we're lining up to give honor, to give acknowledgement, to give attention and presence to what is really, really hard. I see this card as like the absolute opposite of toxic positivity and spiritual bypassing, and being in full experience of the hard and the heavy and the sharp, and not trying to rush our way out of it, and knowing that this is the worst it's going to get. The snow is going to melt, the clouds are going to part, the sun is going to come up. It's really, really sharp right now. This is not a good time, right? But it's a time that we'll look back on as a time that we learned and grew and processed. And it deserves that sense of reverence. And then finally, my friend, is the card that gave me hope. Look at this Temperance card. Oh, I can't even stand it. Kind of like similar to the Ten of Clouds that I just talked about, there is this moment of like presence, and I can't miss this. I don't have to worry about the moments that have happened before, or the moments that have happened that will happen after. My role right now is to balance this moment, to feel this moment. The key words here are providence, harmony, serendipity, and patience. So much presence in making things feel okay, of holding the hard and the good at the same time, and letting them like titrate each other to this place of being able to manage our feelings. It's hard really to tell, but her palms are open forward, which is such a sense of like receiving. And I love this idea that we can see that she's facing into, we don't know if it's sunrise or sunset. We don't know if things are getting brighter or things are getting darker. And we also don't know what is behind her. Like, we don't know what is here, what's behind her as she looks forward. We don't know what she's balancing. We don't know if things are getting darker or brighter, but we can see that she is feeling all of it. Her hands are forward. Her energy is open, and she trusts her ability to manage, to carry, to hold both whatever duality it is that we're struggling with. If it's happiness and sadness, if it's loneliness, but feeling some comfort in the solitude, right? We all have this little, that's almost like this scale of justice that we temper. I'm bringing a different card, but that's for another day. That we recognize that some days the balance of that isn't going to be easy, but we're here for it anyway. So friends, that was my little tour of the Majestic Earth Tarot and my reaction to it. If you would like to see more videos like this, let me know. I'm really planning to not buy a lot of decks this year, but I would love to go through this process with decks that I've already owned. And if you or anyone you know is looking to all pass on an Augenblick Tarot or an Idiosyncratic Tarot, Chrissy's your girl. All right, friends, have a lovely, lovely week. I will see you next time, and enjoy each breath. I'll see you soon.